Yeah.
Talk about the deal that you've reached with President Napolitano on UC funding. How much money in an additional temporary assistance for 2 years, and what you
Well,
get?
we're using Proposition 2, which calls for spending half the funds each year on reducing debt. And if you remember the wall of debt, the university pension funds, unfunded liability was in that wall of debt, and we're helping them pay that down, and in return, they're going to keep tuition flat, and they're also doing, they're going to increase significantly over time the transfer. It's going to make it easier, make it transparent, so kids can go to community college and then get right into the UC for their junior and senior year. Then there's some other ideas. There's a way to examine how courses are delivered. What's the cost of a math course or an engineering course or a Spanish course at one UC versus another? And if there are gross differences, what are they? But we don't know that. And there's a methodology that in our little meeting of two, we heard a presentation on from a professor from back east, and they've agreed to adopt that in 3 departments. And I think that will illuminate some ways to really get at lowering the cost structure.
So you're giving UC more money than you're giving CSU, for at least for those 2 years?
This is money to pay down debt. This is not free money. They're paying down their debt, which will put them in a stronger position, and that's part of the policy of this administration to pay down debt.
Governor, your pension or your plan calls for paying down a lot of the pension debt for the University of California. What is the university giving up in return?
Well, they're giving up the tuition for the next 2 years.
And Janet Napolitano is satisfied with that?
I think so. Oh, yeah, the pension cap. They're going to put a cap on the defined benefits. I think it's somewhere 120. 117. So over that, for new hires, you're not going to get a defined benit. And that will make their pensions more stable.
Governor, you've promised 3 years, it looks like, of pension help. If I look at page,
Right.
What is it, 32 or something like that, 34. And yet, so 3 years of pension help, but only in exchange for a 2-year promise of frozen tuition. And then it's,
yeah, but remember, the pension help is not available for adding new professors or raising salaries or various other things they want to do. It's to stabilize their finances to going forward. So I wouldn't link it to...
And you say in here that by 2017-18, tuition will have remained flat for 6 straight years, and it's reasonable to expect that it would increase at that point. So,
at some point, things do, from Hershey bars to tuition, things tend to go up.
With the UC paying down the pension obligation, that seems to be about what they were asking for, although paid in a different way. Is that right?
They were asking for permanent, ongoing funding that would be spent on operations.
Right, but about $100 million more than what the governor planned to spend, right?
There was. They were, yes. There was some number out there that was $100 million general fund that they were seeking, but we're also changing all of the revenues that UC will receive in terms of when you hold tuition flat. There's changes in their costs because they no longer need to provide greater financial aid. So I don't think you can really use them as an apples to apples number. I think that. But besides the use of the funds, it's also sort of not on a number basis. When you change the tuition policy, those numbers also change.
So is there the UC's agreeing to change its pension for new hires?
Correct.
And they're going to cap it, as I understand it, $117,000.
And that's consistent.
So nobody who gets hired after whenever this becomes the rule will get a pension in excess of $117,000?
They will adopt a UC Regents policy this year. It will immediately begin affecting those individuals who don't have collective bargaining agreements. As new collective bargaining agreements are renewed, those new agreements would bring that cap in. And so, and just a little bit more on the cap, 117 is the current value of the PEPRA cap that the state adopted in 2012.
Okay, so a UC chancellor, a UC president, a campus president, an assistant vice president who's making $500,000 or whatever it might be,
Right.
will not get a pension in excess of $117,000.
They will not get a defined benefit. We recognize that there may be sort of add-ons, and that's one of the things that UC needs to work through over the next year and bring to their regions. But in terms of risk to government, in terms of future stock market returns and future liability, that would be capped at the 117 level.
And there's not going to be a loophole that is written in for, some cool dean who's coming in.
The funds will be contingent. They're not going to go to UC until the regents adopt this policy, and our agreement is to have a PEPRA compliant cap that applies to the governor and everyone else in the administration and in all of our other state and local and school governments. So no,
Will there be a loophole in it for somebody who is really coveted?
No, that's the whole point, is that government's going to limit its risk to the PEPRA limit, and then there could be a defined contribution of a higher amount, but that doesn't carry the same risk as a defined benefit.